Good shitness. Yeah, I was hoping the police would come.
Still time, Willie, still time.
Alright, but before I start this waffling, I will like to pass out some thanks to, well, first to Pete Pound for drawing those magnificent pictures.
Yeah, Pete.
He did them on Friday night. It took him about an hour, I suppose, maybe a bit more. He's very professional. And this one here is a copy of Mum when on that picture over by the wall there. She was about 15 or 16 or maybe 18 or something, maybe 20. I don't know, but anyway. And that one over there is a copy of the picture that's down at the bottom left of the drawing. So with Campbell, who's not here, the bastard.
He's here.
He's on a feature at the pub.
Oh.
He's what?
He's what? He's on a feature at the pub. You wouldn't accept.
All right, other people to thank Sue and Sally for making lots of nice foods.
Thank you.
And everyone else who bought nice foods. I'd like to give a special thanks to Lionel and Colleen who made sure that my mum was financially flush for about 20 years, which was no small feat, and didn't have to go wanting. And I'd like to thank Henry for bringing some ice and
Henry!
and everyone else, Kay and Andrew, everyone, Kieko, who of course has done a magnificent job with all the photos. She spent lots of hours picking through them and putting them into frames and doing all that sort of thing. Yeah, and being a wonderful wife and daughter-in-law for the last 30 years or so. So, yeah. Anyway, and also, if you want to make a speech, you can put your hand up at the end of this, but I'll let Henry and Martha say something first, since we're the offspring of Betsey. Yep. Yeah, anyway, I'll get on with this crap. Look, I'm shaking. Where's that beard? Okay. My mum was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan on the 5th of July 1939. Second daughter of Martha, who was usually called Pat, and Fred, who was usually called Fred. And she was the 10 years younger sister of Martha. Why are there so many Marthas? Anyway, she was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, the land of grits and collard greens and bacon grease and fried green tomatoes and bluegrass music, all of which she loved until the end. She married Jim and had our older brother James, and then a couple of years later met our father John, who was an Englishman studying in the US. Evidently, at their first encounter, Betsey asks, "Why are you in the United States?" And he said, "I'm getting away from my mother," which should have been a red flag. In addition to our older brother James, Betsey bore the three of us, me, Martha and Henry, and after some trips back and forth between the US and England, we returned to England on the return leg of the maiden voyage of the QE2. Ooh.
I wasn't born yet.
Although Henry wasn't born by then.
I was working on it.
He might have been somewhere. Anyway, he was probably plotting something. We stayed for a few years in the United Kingdom and then came out here on a boat in 1976. Yay! Yeah. In 1978, my dad divorced my father. Sorry, my mum. Well, you know, we're in the inner city, anything can happen. Yeah, my mum divorced my father, and she always referred to him as Fang in a very cynical tone. I don't think she liked him very much, but anyway.
She did outlive him.
Hey?
She did outlive him.
Oh yeah, that was funny. In the nursing home, I said, "Your ex-husband's just died," and she was lying in bed, bedridden. She threw her arms up in the air and said, "I win!" So anyway, that happened. Yeah, my mum got divorced. After she was divorced, we moved into this house in 1982, and she didn't have any other real relationships. She had a couple of short-term things, but she often used to joke and say, "I gave it up when I was in my prime." Yeah. She bought this house with a small deposit and a resolute attitude. She was a single mother with 3 kids because my older brother had already gone back to the United States to live with his dad. This place was a bit of a dump. I was depressed about having to live on the south side because we've been living on the North Shore in another dump. But my mum...
Leafy dump.
Leafy dump. It's a leafy dump in North Shore. Yeah. But my mum kept encouraging us to think that it was the right thing. As everyone knows, house prices went up. And on occasion I asked her whether it was some kind of special sense that she had, that she knew that the housing prices would go up, and all she would do was tap her nose like this. But later on she admitted that she bought the place because it was all she could afford. Yeah.
Remember the going rate on a loan on deposits
It was
was
about
10% of the time. Deposits.
Yeah, it was a lot. The interest rate was way through the roof. In the early part of her life, Mum struggled with the booze, but she gave it up and didn't touch a drop for about 35 years. Until recently, when she knew that she was, coming to the end, and she used to enjoy a few sips of whiskey every now and then. Yeah, for the last, year or so. She never got really drunk again, though. Yeah. She was a person of contrasts. She had a disdain for comedy, but her favourite movie was Some Like It Hot, with Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, which is considered to be one of the great comedies. She hated sport. I used to say, "Have you read the sports section yet, Mum?" She didn't like that. But she loved swimming regularly at Enmore Pool, where she made some of her best friends. She loved classical music but couldn't stand opera. After she retired, she spent a lot of time in this kitchen with her sewing machine, making quilts and listening to ABC Classic FM, except when the opera came on. She made quilts for her family and friends. Each one took several months to make, and each one is a stunning work of art. And somewhere around there's a whole load of photos of them, but I'm sorry I couldn't get to that part. Maybe one day I'll put them on the internet or something. As you all know, we have a part of our family with my marriage to Kyoko is Japanese, and she liked to remind everyone that she studied bacteriology in the 1950s, and it was not all right to eat raw fish. Nevertheless, she did eat it sometimes, and she loved Kyoko to bits and often thanked me for bringing Kyoko into her life. She certainly had a sentimental side. She rarely used curse words, but often yelled, "God damn it!" when she dropped something or had trouble with her sewing machine. Yeah. She had encyclopedic knowledge, often beating whoever was about to Google something. And I used to joke with her and say, "You know everything, Mum," and she just calmly replied, "Yes, I do." She knew the names of hundreds of plants, medicines and body parts and cooking things, and even worked as a chef for a while. She loved history and royal families from all over the world and watched many lectures on YouTube, and actually before YouTube existed, used to go to actual lectures in actual universities and societies and so on. She was a charitable person throughout her life. She helped many people in a variety of ways and even let a couple of my down and out friends come and live with us when I was a teenager. In this house, she rented rooms and provided food and English instruction to many international folks, both on business and study visas, and even Kyoko's niece Kay, wherever she is, who's still here in Australia. Yeah. Yeah. In Australia, still here 22 years later. Is it that long? Jeez. The very first of her flatmates, who was a guy named Hiramatsu Yasushi, who we used to call Yasu Serious. He was very, very serious. Anyway, he came here with his wife, and they lived in that room up there. and they had a child who they named Ellie after my mother, whose official name was Elizabeth, which you all know. I don't know why I'm repeating that, but anyway. She always used to repeat it when everyone phoned her up and said, "Hey, can I speak to Elizabeth, please?" And she goes, "It's Betsey." Yeah. She spent many years of her retirement working in a neighbourhood aid, clearing overgrown gardens and spreading mulch for old folks around that area, around Burwood and Strathfield and places, and she loved doing it. She was a justice of the peace, and she took a role she took up so she could help people with their document formalities when dealing with bureaucracies. She regularly donated to causes she saw worthy, such as the Salvos and Bill Cruz's Exodus Foundation that feeds the poor. And she contributed much to the education of her grandchildren. She always said that education was the best place to spend money, and who could disagree? She loved to travel, and in later years explored many places such as China, Georgia, Azerbaijan and Turkey, which she always said was her favourite country. Betsey was a rusted-on liberal, an atheist and a rationalist. She had no interest in spirituality and definitely didn't believe in an afterlife, and so donated her body to science because she wanted to contribute to people's education and she wanted us to save money. Thanks, Mum. Betsey was my friend. We spent many hours. I'm getting to the end of this. If anyone's come on, hurry up. Okay, Betsey was my friend. We spent many hours and days and years talking about many things, and she always gave me her understanding, even when I got in trouble with the police when I was a teenager. We have been incredibly lucky to have been born from the smart and caring person that Betsey was. She was more than just our mum. She was a champion for so many people. For half of her life, for 42 years, this was the place that she nurtured and loved and called home, and a place that we all shared, and all of you have touched it, which is why we're having this celebration here. This was also her wish. Of course, we're all saddened that Betsey has gone. We miss her terribly. Nevertheless, today is surely a time to be full of gratitude for her life. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, I think you want to go first or Martha?
You're older.
Go in chronological order. I'll leave it to them to decide. Thanks.
I'm going to have to Google something. Because I was kind of assuming that Martha would take the next slot, as she is the next in line age-wise, and the second oldest of the clan now. My mother was never overly sentimental, and she was, as my brother stated, a rusted-on liberal and rationalist. But she was also a cultural explorer, and as he also mentioned, a bluegrass musician. As someone who was remarkably disparaging of not the working class, but white trash, she was also a bluegrass musician, which one might find mildly ironic with her love for classical music, but was also definitely a position of the culture from which she came. So I think it's apposite that I give you one of her favourite songs that she used to sing when I was a kid, which surprisingly is gonna piss her off no end. There's an angel sent down from above, sent for the bloods of the flowers we love. But every bud and every blossom someday will bloom as a flower in the Master's bouquet. Gathering flowers for the Master's bouquet, beautiful flowers that'll never decay. Gathered by angels and carried away, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet. Loved ones are passing each day and each hour, passing away as the life of a flower. Taken and cared for each heaven's own way, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet. Gathering flowers for the Master's bouquet, beautiful flowers that will never decay. Gathered by angels and carried away, forever to bloom in the Master's bouquet. Thank you.
Thanks for that memory, Hen. Set me up for this. But our early life was full of music. We had lots of music in the house. We had lots of activity with heaps of different people coming into the house. You know, we grew up in England, and our mum and dad would go out and play in the bands. They'd ship us off to our grandmother for 6 weeks every summer and have a really good time without us, mostly. But I'll read you what I've written, and I've probably doubled up a bit on what Willie's already said, but I'm just reflecting on Betsey's life as my mum, because we all know she was more than that. She was a lot to everybody, and she was tenacious in a quest for knowledge and persevered to accomplish skills as they took a fancy. So if she wanted to learn how to quilt, she did her quilting really well. Now I've got one of her early quilts, and it's, you know, even now, even lately, she would have said, that's really sloppy work. Her late work was not sloppy. She got really good at it. And she'd spend a lot of time making quilts for everybody, her dear friends, her family, people, babies. She loved it. So that was part of her life. And she wore many hats in her life. And in all those different pursuits, she made many friends. Many friends that are her friends still. Yeah. Anyway, she had a love of reading, which started from a very young age. She said she was reading the newspaper as a 5-year-old. She was always very proud of that. And she always continued to remind us of that when we had children, almost like, why aren't your kids reading the newspaper already? But our kids were the love of her life as well. And she went away to boarding school when she was young, and then she went to university, and she had kids straight away. So she was very young. She was only 21 when she had her first child, which, you know, in this day and age, you think you're only a child still yourself. And they moved back and forth, and we had good times when we were in England. She was in the band. She'd also managed the fundraising for the rugby club. She, as Willie said, she hated sport, and she just threw herself into the fundraising for the rugby club. She ran the Donkey Derby. She made it into a great feature, but she threw herself 100% into it because she wanted to participate. And she still hated rugby. Always did.
She didn't have to watch it from the bar.
Yeah. But it's always been a constant part of my life has been rugby. Not through me playing, but my boys played and my father played.
Of your own.
Yeah, and so it's never escaped her. But she didn't ever come and watch any games with. Oh, she might have once, but she didn't like watching games. She never came and watched me play any sport or anything like that. She didn't like it. Couldn't see the point of it. And that's fair enough. What is the point of it? Anyway, when we did live in England, when we were kids, we went on a great camping holiday across Europe to Greece, and we had a great time. I remember it as being a great time. We had a great time. We went in. She just got a new Land Rover, which had the troopy seats on the side. We packed all the camping gear. We'd pull it out every night and camp somewhere different. We finally got to Greece and we stayed for a week and camped there and then camped all the way back. And when I had my own kids and I started doing a bit of camping with them, I just thought, how did you possibly do that? That was such a penance because, you know, we were a really rowdy bunch and there was like a lot of fireworks going
Camping
on.
outside Venice and taking 4 kids into the office.
And then we moved to Australia. Life began for her, I think, in Australia. She left my father. They separated and she went back to live in America for a year, but then came back and set herself up as a single mother and ended up buying this house, which we're celebrating in today. This is very much a part of her, this house. It's got her character pushed all through it. So it was a very, a very big move for someone to, with all that responsibility, to be able to buy and pay off something like this. And she had she wore many hats in her career. You know, she started making the sandwiches, then she moved to chefing, then she went back and did a dip head so that she could teach. Now, one of the prerequisites of that was that you had to go and teach in somewhere that no one else wanted to teach. So she had to do a year out at Mount Druitt when she qualified, and I think that was pretty eye-opening for her. But she did it, and then she ended up teaching with Ruth and Helen and having a great career there, and then she retired, and she retired and started the quilting, and she did the garden aid. She kept swimming. She met so many people. She went to and had so much fun, and her immense love of travel, I think, has led her to see nearly 80% of the countries in the world. She's been everywhere, Nan, and. Even travelling from Turkey to Georgia with salmonella, and she didn't get diagnosed until she got back to France, and stayed with my brother, and he said, "Mum, you're really sick." She said, "No, I'm having a great time."
and being stuck in a hospital in Chengdu 2 weeks before the hospital wasn't there
She fell
anymore.
off a chair in was it Vietnam,
China.
Cambodia?
Oh no, it was Vietnam. I think.
And had to go to the hospital there and be stitched up. Yeah, and then in China she was very sick. So she's just made do with everything and rolls with the flow, definitely. Lately we had some great trips, Tom, myself and I, and Sally came on to Darwin as well, and we went to Taiwan with her. But she loved movies, museums, lectures, swimming, making many different friends she shared experiences and adventures with. And I think that's that's reflected in the, so we say, eclectic mix of people here today. Everyone has great memories of Betsey from all walks of life. She made friends wherever she went. So I see her characteristics living on in us and her grandchildren. We are her legacy, and her memory will live on with us, but also through us for the rest of our lives. As she often quoted, "Do not go gently into that good night." And she definitely didn't.
Yeah.
I think, would anyone else like to speak?
I'm going to grab Pete down with me. He doesn't want to come. Willie reminded me that I was his oldest friend, Raphael May, here with Pete Pound. I look at this floor, the chicken brown, and I remember when we used to play chess on here. I remember that before this place was done up, there was cockroaches going up. I thought, what the fuck, this is a horrendous place. This became the central kitchen for us. You guys, it's frightening that you haven't mentioned food. Because
it's the biggest part of Betsey.
if you look at I know my relationship with the Bristas, it's on a food level. And same with Pete.
Yeah.
Talking and food. Michelle my wife was talking outside before, saying that she met me in come to our place and we'd be eating and arguing. And it's like the Bristas. We'd come to this table, sit here, and there'd be food always. I remember the first time I met Betsey, I think I was 15, and you're in the house in the north side. I was in a band with Bill,
Motherwell or Roseville?
on the main road, Roseville. And there was this huge pot, and all these people showing up. Had this band, we didn't know we had any fans, but all these girls kept showing up, which was great. And there was this food cooking, and it's like, and I met Betsey then, and she boasted to me, she said, I can feed people 28 cents a meal. It was a huge thing of ham and pea soup.
Oh, pea and ham soup.
Yeah, pea and ham soup. I thought, oh my God, a second home. And I've eaten here about 50 times, 100 times.
Hundreds of times. Me
Pete,
too.
come on, Mike.
It's one of the things that I first remember about Betsey was the way that
You've got better mic.
dinner time at Betsey's was a gathering of people around food. That conversation and food was where you caught up with people, you were able to discuss current issues or family issues or even personal issues. But for me it was important because I'd not experienced that. It wasn't until I met Betsey and Betsey's family that this became a really important part of how you deal with people and life was through food and conversation. And so it was a big part of my life. I've met Betsey in 1984 and have known her and come here for dinners ever since. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And I've tried to adapt that mentality into my own family. And I hope that I have, because it's very special to be able to share food with people that you love and can converse with. So, thanks, Betsey.
Thanks, Betsey.
Oh, here comes the old bag.
I'm glad Raph mentioned it because I thought when Mum was talking about her great loves, she left out food as well. And as you can all see, we've got the Old Bay shirt on today, and it's certainly one of the many things Betsey introduced me to that I'll carry to my grave. And only just a couple of weeks ago, when I last visited Betsey, she had the Old Bay sauce now sitting right on the bedside table. It's the only way to make that sort of food edible. But she was fantastic. Like Mum said, she wasn't into sport, but she always appreciated, Campbell's skill at rugby and Mum and I's love of an obsession with horses. And as she mentioned, how she helped with the education. Can never be more than grateful for how much she helped with our education, and how she was able to be critical of something, but in a very non-judgmental way. She would, analyse something and just, bring that to a small point without being mean to anyone. She was, always very polite, always very gracious. And I have to come back to the food again, because I could know that I could just come here, could be as hungover as anything, and even when she wasn't drinking, I would get very little obvious judgment. I'd have a bacon and eggs and pot of tea on the table in no time at all. And also, I'm grateful for all the people that have come into my life through her, not just the family and how much I enjoyed hanging out with all of you guys, but also the people that are around 97 Rochford Street, Erskineville. And make sure, like Pete Pound, who was just talking, make sure you check out his little drawing on the wall over there from 1989, when you'll see what the house used to look like, and then go and step outside and have another look. I was talking to Willie the other day, because in typical Bristol fashion, there wasn't a lot of organisation going on leading into this. And so I can blame genetics for my lack of organisation, not take accountability, of course. But Willie did say that he was reading through some notes, and Betsey mentioned I was going to have to read out a poem. And I had no idea what this poem was. He didn't know either. So I thought I'll ask ChatGPT, and I thought, no, she probably wouldn't like that. As an English teacher, I'm going to have to go and find somewhere that's got a source. I ended up finding something of an unknown author, so I'm going to source memories.net.
Unknown author, ChatGPT.
Yeah. Feel no guilt in laughter. She knows how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that she's not here to share. You cannot grieve forever. She would not want you to. She'd hope you could carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the way you showed you cared. The days you spent together, all the happiness you shared. Let memories surround you, a word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day. That brings her back as clearly as though she was here and fills you with the feelings that she is always near. For if you keep these moments, you'll never be apart, and she will live forever, locked safely within your heart. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming today. I can't remember the last time I've done a speech, but well, I just would like to say a few things. I truly am lucky to have had such a fantastic grandmother. I'm sure she will always hold a special place in everyone's hearts. I have so many great memories with Betsey. One in particular was our trip to Taiwan. Betsey showed how great of a backseat driver she was. We were riding in a tour bus and the driver was awful, to say the least. Eventually Betsey got so fed up with his driving that she tried to teach him how not to bunny hop the bus. Later on in the trip, Mum and I became seriously ill with food poisoning. And when we asked Betsey why she wasn't sick, seeing as we thought she ate the same food as us, she explained to us how she never eats shellfish when overseas. She thought it would be a good learning experience, which it was. Another great trip we went on was Darwin. At the time, Betsey was in a wheelchair, and of course I was the designated driver. She was always telling me to push it faster because we had things to see and activities to do. I think there must have been a hoarding gene passed down in the family, because she loved collecting fantastic trinkets such as her impressive vase collection on the walls and her awesome necklaces, which when I was younger, when I'd come over, I'd always love to try them on. One of my fondest memories with Betsey was when I'd come down here after Mum was fed up with me. She'd send me down here. And Betsey, of course, as welcoming as always, would, back to the food, would always feed me while I'd go back home about 5 kilos heavier. And would always cook bake fantastic treats. I'd always end up eating half of the mixture and she questioned me where it had all gone. But again, thank you everyone for coming and celebrating such a great life.
Anyone else want to say anything? That's it, I think, folks. Please enjoy the rest of the afternoon. There's still plenty to eat and drink, and I'll put some music on so the whole atmosphere doesn't feel like some.
Can we hear some of her music?
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Interestingly, this Betsey Jefferson, the Ridge Runners, I asked her not very long ago, actually, just a few months ago. I said, why did that band fall apart? And she said, because we all got bored of it.
Tom asked if it was on Spotify.
Coming back in.
No, it's on SoundCloud if you want to find it.
Right, because I tried to look it up.
But it's also on my iPhone and I can't for the life of me find it. Where is it? Where did I put it?
Because I was trying to find that that performance on Nationwide or the ads in 1973.
Put on the...
It's about the great outdoors. And the outdoors is
Put it next to the
probably
mic
not a
and
good
go
place to be
outside.
right now. Are you ready? This one's called There's a Rabbit in the Log and I Ain't Got My Dog.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we do. See. Rabbit in the log and I eat What's Betsey on? She's a singer and something else, right?
Double bass.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. You're not in the way.